Hey, I'm Bill Beretta, and you're watching a podcast where nostalgia comes alive. It's Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. Roll it!
Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Since July of 2021, Jake and his friends have interviewed professionals in the worlds of acting, directing, writing, puppeteering, and many more. Who will they be chatting with in this week's interview? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. Happy to be with us. Thank you for joining. As always, I'm your host, Jake Deffinbaugh. With today, as always, our co-host, Chris Bixby and Matt Bingel. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing good. Hello, everybody. How you doing, Jakey?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thank you for asking.
Yes, wonderful. Who do we have for today?
Today's guest we have for today, he's a puppet builder and puppeteer. Some of you know him from his puppetry projects he worked on in the past, such as for Sesame Street and the Muppets, including Muppets from Space and the 2011 film The Muppets. And he's also a part of other series projects we will get into later, for example, including Between the Lions, Book of Pooh, Yankers, and a bunch of others. Please welcome Mr. BJ Geyer. Happy to hear, BJ. Happy to have you here. How are you?
Good, great. Thanks for having me.
Of course, happy to have you here.
My pleasure.
Yes.
So to kick things off, so for those who don't know you, could you tell our audience a bit about yourself and what you did? You know, I did most of your introduction.
Sure. I'm a puppeteer, puppet builder, show content creator, a little bit of everything. Kind of run the gamut in the production world the last 30 plus years. I started out my career at Disney World as a character performer, and then went to work with the Muppets when Jim was still alive, and continued with the Muppets for several years, but had started my own shop, and I've been building puppets for commercials, television, film, and theme parks. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So.
Nice. So before kind of getting into puppetry, what was your background like and how did you grow up?
I grew up in Ohio, and in the 70s and in the early 80s, no internet then or anything like that. So for someone from Ohio, I love building model kits. I built models. I painted miniatures when they were still made out of lead, which probably explains a lot of things. But yeah, and played D&D back in the day when they were still paperbacks, the first versions, and did a lot of theater. Never really thought I would end up in a career where I would actually be working in film. My original goal was to be a radio DJ. So after high school, I went to college and studied broadcasting in Ohio. And 3 semesters in, I decided to try out for an internship with Disney. So I got involved in the Disney college program, and I was one of the very first program that worked with the new studios that weren't even open yet. So I got to go down there, and that's kind of it. I went from daydreaming about this stuff to all of a sudden working with people that I had sat 3 feet from the television watching, while I was growing up, and it's kind of been a whirlwind ever since.
Sounds like it to me. So how did you get into puppetry?
Well, I've always been into puppetry. When I was a Sesame Street kid. That was prime season for early Sesame, so I grew up with that. PBS, you got 3 network channels in PBS, so you watch PBS all the time. So Sesame Street, Electric Company, Zoom, Hot Fudge, all those shows kind of got me started and interested in puppetry. Again, growing up in Ohio and not having an internet, there were no resources. Our school had one book. It was Tom Tishner, who's another puppeteer and puppet builder from Nashville. And he had the big book of puppetry, and our school library had it. And I think I checked that book out probably 6 years running. I was the only name in it. As soon as it would be due, I'd sign it out again. And I tried making those puppets. There were patterns in that book, and I would try making them out of scrap fabric. We didn't have foam. Eventually when I got older, I realized you could find like old couch cushions and cut the foam up from that. But I never again thought of it as a career. And then in college, I was doing a children's theater class, and we did one of the shows where we had puppets in it. So we got to build the puppets and perform. And that was kind of like, oh, people really do this for a living. And when I was at Disney, I originally went down on college program as part of operations. I was working on the backlot tour. And I was watching all the performers on stage and then the costume characters and thought, I'd love to do that. That really is attractive to me as a performer. And I followed through with it. And I just asked the right questions and the right people. And next thing you know, I was performing. I mean, became a career at that point. It really wasn't prior to that. It was more of a daydream. So.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, were there any Muppets you'd say you were the most fascinated by?
I think all of them. Gonzo was always my favorite. The Muppet movie, his song in the Muppet movie was always my favorite scene. So the first time I got to see Gonzo in person was pretty amazing. That was an incredible experience. I will say though, the one really surprising thing that shocked me more than anything was the first time on Muppets from Space when I walked in and saw the puppets was how small they actually are. Because you always imagine they're big. I mean, you always think they're next to people, they must be huge. And I remember seeing Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem, the puppets were on stands, and I walked up and Dr. Teeth's head is like this big. It's like the size of a grapefruit. It's super, super tiny. And when you put them on, it's pretty much just your hand. It's not big. Even though he's such a larger than life character, the physical size of the puppets were just so tiny and not what I expected. Even Kermit was very small. I mean, he was literally, it's just a glove, and but in your mind, you always think they're so much bigger. But I would say out of all those, I think Gonzo was just the most kind of fanboy moment seeing that puppet for the first time. So it was very cool. And also seeing Dave perform a couple feet away from me as the character, that was kind of mind-blowing. So
yeah. And and I'm kind of curious, you talked about did you get to work with Jim?
I did. So my first project I wasn't credited on. I was doing at Disney World, we had a live show with the studios that was called Here Come the Muppets Live. And it was a big walk around version. Yeah. And I was in the early casts for that when they were developing the show. And I had met several of the Henson people just through happenstance. And one day Jane Henson was in the green room and I had, talked to her several times prior. And I was doing Floyd Pepper for the big show. So she came over and she's like, BJ, what are you doing right now? And I go, oh, we're just finishing up. She goes, come with me. So she takes me, I thought maybe we're just going to go outside and chat or whatever. Well, I'm following her and we actually left the theme park. We went into the back lot. We're walking through the back lot. And at this point, I'm kind of like really confused. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. This is Jim's wife, right next to me, leading me somewhere. She leads me through a door, down a hall. She opens the door, and inside the room are Jim, Frank, Richard Hunt, Dave Goles, Jerry Nelson. It's the entire group are sitting. It was their green room. In between shots, they were shooting the Muppets at Walt Disney World, which is a television special that coincided with the opening. She walks in and she goes, hey, everybody. She goes, this is BJ. He's doing Floyd over at the Here Come the Muppet Show. I wanted to introduce him to you. And I met everybody. And it was just, again, I was 20 years old. I think it took me 3 weeks to get my jaw back up attached. It just fell and hit the floor the moment you walk in. Because, like, how do you react when all of a sudden you're right in a room with them? And then she took me around the table, the other side, and said, Jerry, BJ's doing Floyd. Can you give him some pointers or some tips on the character? He's like, sure. So he pulled a chair up. And next thing I know, I'm sitting with Jerry Nelson. He's telling me about Floyd Pepper, about the motivation for the character, about the voice, about how he put it all together. And then they got called to set, and they're like, well, why don't you come to set with us? So I go to set. They bring a chair over, and I'm watching. The next thing they're like, well, come on back to the room. So I go back to the room, and I'm meeting everybody. I'm meeting all of them. And basically what started out as this really random meeting turned into me going back and forth for 4 days. And I didn't go to work for 4 days. I went in and they invited me back every day. So I spent 4 days with all of them. Several of them brought frogs out from Muppets Take Manhattan and were showing me how to puppeteer the frogs in front of a mirror. And then the last day, my fourth day, there was a big song called the Swamp Song. And Kevin Clash was like, BJ, come over here. And he basically drags me into the middle of the set. Here's your puppet, puts this puppet on my hand. It was a Granny Frog puppet. And first off, I'm a lefty. I put it on my right hand. I was so nervous. I didn't know what to do. I put the puppet on my right. He goes, put the puppet up. He goes, here's your monitor. Here's your lyrics. He goes, only sing the highlighted ones. And the movement is right, left, right, left, right, left. I'm like, I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified. 4 days earlier, I had no clue any of this was going to happen. So it was only in the big wide shots. But if you look at it, Granny Frog's right in the middle. I literally had Kermit and Piggy 3 feet in front of me, Frank and Jim. Kermit was playing the banjo. I had Bunsen and Beaker right behind me. I had all of the other Muppets like surrounding within 10 feet. I mean, it was goosebumps. It was one of the most amazing moments. And I still remember that feeling. And if you watch the video, it's on YouTube now. Watch Granny Frog in the shot. She's crooked and she's shaking terribly the whole time. That was me. So I don't even know if I got the lip sync or the mouth open at that point. But that was the start. That was literally the start of my journey with that. And shortly after that, I did a workshop with just after Jim passed. I did a workshop with Steve Whitmire and Kevin Clash at Disney, where they were doing puppeteer training. And then I ended up going up to New York for a while. So, but yeah, really, really strange series of random events that led to everything. So,
yeah,
Nice.
it's interesting. You mentioned Here Come the Muppets. You mentioned how like the puppets are huge. You think those are huge? Wait till you see the walk-arounds. Like it's crazy.
Oh no, these were the walk-arounds. This was the first show.
I know. You were talking about watching the Muppets themselves.
Yeah.
But that's like nothing compared to the walk-around.
No.
That's nothing.
Fozzie and Animal were the performers for Fozzie and Animal were 6 foot tall. So the walk-arounds themselves were 7 foot taller, a little bit taller. So you can imagine how big these things were. They were gigantic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was a great show. We did between 8 and 10 shows a day, 7 days a week, for over a year on that. So, well, that ran for a while, and then I think that show became the Voyage of the Little Mermaid after our show left. So, but, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Nice.
So now, you kind of mentioned this earlier, but one of your earliest puppeteering projects was with the Muppets on Muppets from Space. What was it like getting to do that?
That was amazing. That was my first feature with the Muppets, and that was an amazing experience to be able to work next to so many people for a job, 5 days a week was an incredible experience. And there was a lot of moving around. I mean, we had our hands in a little bit of everything. I got lucky. I had worked with radio controlled airplanes when I was younger, so I had some basic radio control skills. So I did a lot of the RC stuff, which was really neat. I did the radio controlled Rizzo for the gurney scene where they're running through the hallways, and then I worked with Sweetums, Andy Stone or John Henson. Either one of the two were usually in Sweetums, and I was doing the face, the eye movement and stuff, which was all RC. But I mean, it was great because every day you'd come into work, you didn't know what you were doing. You'd be doing a chicken, or you could be right-handing Kermit, or you could be, you could be doing legs. Who knew? Or rats or various other things. So, plus, it was in North Carolina, and it wasn't rushed. It wasn't like production now where you've got 5 days. We were up there for several months, so it was a great experience. So.
Definitely.
Yep, sounds like it. So you also got to perform and puppeteer various roles on the long-running PBS series Between the Lions. What was that show like, and what exactly did you get to do on Between the Lions?
So I wasn't a regular on that. I was working on full-time. I was working on another show for Disney Channel called The Book of Pooh. It was a Winnie the Pooh show.
Yes.
And I was on Team Tigger with Tyler Bunch, and then I did Eeyore on a few episodes, and I assisted on Eeyore and assisted on Piglet and on Pooh, and that was a great show. There was a lot of puppeteers crammed into a small area, all dressed in green all the time. But in our downtime, I was able to do pickup days on Between the Lions. So if I was brought in there, it was usually on days where they had a lot of characters. So it was the same kind of thing. It's like, here, right hand this, do this, throw this puppet on. So I had wanted to do more with it, but the schedule just didn't allow for it. So usually it was just assisting or doing background characters. So
That's awesome. So you also puppeteered, as we mentioned in your introduction, on a few projects with Sesame Street, one of them being Elmo's World Happy Holidays. What was that like?
the holiday shows were fantastic. They were just really great experiences. The cast of Sesame Street is a very tight knit group, and it's a very small group. So those videos were great times to allow for bigger production numbers. Like, you know, the regular Sesame sketches have a handful of puppets in them, are manageable, but on those holiday videos, we could have 18, 20 characters all in the scene for like the songs and stuff. So that's generally what we'd be brought in for. And I was really fortunate to be able to be included in that group. I got to puppeteer the Count and Bert and Hoots the Owl, a little bit of everybody, you know, and then Birds in Trees and various other things. The other kind of really cool thing with that too is just the range of stars, because there were always great guest stars, you know, on that. So got to work with people like Sheryl Crow and that I normally wouldn't have met, you know, otherwise. And that was always interesting to me, like the guest stars on those holiday albums or holiday specials. You know, a lot of them were huge fans of the Muppets or Sesame Street. So when they'd come in, it was their first time meeting it. They were just as excited to be there as we were to meet them, you know, and they were fascinated by the characters. And it's really cool to watch how quickly they forget there are puppeteers and they just talk to the characters. You know, it was very, very cool. And it makes you realize that it makes you humanize celebrities a little more. You forget they're people, you know, sometimes. So
Yeah. Yeah, Elmo's World Happy Holidays is a great one too, because that's the one where Elmo tries to get a present for his goldfish.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's a fun one.
Yeah, you also seem to like. I think everybody tends to forget that there's a human behind the scenes. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's not even with Sesame Street. It's just like everything, because you can tell I'm a puppeteer myself. I've been doing it for the last almost 3.5 years now, and Jake is as well. Chris is occasionally, I guess, so to speak. But you know, we've done, especially Jake and I, we've done appearances in public a couple of times in the past, and a lot of people do seem to forget that there's a human behind it. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but
well, that's the goal. I mean, I think that's the sign of doing a good job, is if your character is, you know, they forget you're there and talk to the character. And it used to fascinate me when Jim would do appearances on like Johnny Carson and that, because he didn't hide himself. He would just sit on the couch and put Kermit on. And the minute he put Kermit on to his arm, you stop seeing Jim Henson, and you won't. And even Carson or the interviewers would talk to the puppet and not to the person anymore, you know? Even though they're right there, you know? So I think that's just a testament to the art form, you know? It's everyone's goal as a puppeteer to not be noticed, you know? So
right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Definitely.
So another Sesame Street video you got to work on is Elmo's Christmas Countdown. What's it like getting to do that?
That one was great. We got to
a lot of celebrity pieces in that.
Yeah, there were a lot of amazing celebrities in that, and playing characters like the Easter Bunny and stuff like that. So that was a great time. That was a lot of fun. Again, that one too, there were a lot of sets built, you know, for that, which was really nice. There were, you know, actual outside of Sesame Street outdoor sets and stuff. So I don't know if you've ever like seen the behind the scenes stuff for, you know, Sesame or for the Muppets, but when you see these sets and you walk in and the floor is raised several feet off the ground and there's panels to lift out and put out, you know, it's really impressive, especially when you see a guest star come in who's got to interact in that, and they're realizing that there's actually 4 feet above normal ground level, you know, or higher, and to watch how they act with that too, you know. But it was really great experience working on those. I think one of my favorite Sesame projects though was the We Are Family video, the PSA that we did years ago, because I hung out with Barney all day. I mean, that was just like legit Barney, you know, that like to be able to bring characters from so many different worlds into one thing and promote an idea was just an amazing experience. And same thing with that too. It was like I'm not a principal puppeteer in that group at all, but it was really kind of cool being in that background group because you never know who's going to be stuck on your arm. So you just kind of wing it the whole time. And it's great. It's a good feeling. So
Yeah.
a little nerve-wracking, a
Right.
little intimidating, but
Yeah. I'm kind of curious. So with Elmo's Christmas Countdown specifically, because there were a lot of celebrity numbers, as I mentioned. Do you remember what you did for that special?
oh my goodness, the count for one of the group songs of all the characters, and chickens. Or was it, chickens and penguin? Was it penguins? I'm really sorry. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was probably like 15 or so years ago now, I think.
Something like that.
I think it was more than that, wasn't it? Probably closer to 20 years ago, right?
Christmas Countdown.
Elmo's World Happy Holidays, I think, was 20
Elmo's
years
World
ago.
Happy Holidays, I think, was almost 20.
Yeah. So,
yeah, one of my favorite pieces in that is the one with Jennifer Hudson. I don't know if you did that one.
I was doing a red bird in one of the trees when she's walking through, and the bird pops out for a second and then pops back in, and that was an interesting one too because our job is to not be seen, remain hidden, and we're used to being underneath. But in that, when you're doing birds, you're using the set to hide behind. Well, we had all those pine trees and the snow falling, and you're puppeteering with a bird on your hand. You're puppeteering through the tree, and if you push too hard, the branches separate and you get seen. So you're trying to figure out the best way to nuance that, like you roll the head out so I can do my bit and then back out. You can't really just push through. So that one, I definitely was remember that bit. It was actually very cool too because I worked with her again on Adam Sandler movie called Sandy Wexler, and got to chat with her about it. And she was saying she was talking about that. It was such a great experience for her because she was really new in the music scene at that point. After, was it American Idol, or was it American Idol that she was on? I think so. But anyway, and to talk to her again like 15 years later was pretty incredible, and she still remembered that moment. So
wow, that's wonderful.
You never forget your moments with Sesame Street.
Yeah,
you never do.
Yeah, and I'm also, did you get to puppeteer in the Macy's parade at all?
I did I did Baby Bear one year. I did parade 3 years. I think it was either 2 or 3. I think I did it for 3 years. I did Baby Bear, and then I did, oh gosh, who was I puppeteering? I don't even remember. Again, I usually did secondary characters because the primaries would do the principal characters.
Yeah, right.
But I know the last one I did Baby Bear in one of the windows. I'm trying to remember. I'm getting it confused with D23 when we did the riverboat thing. Gosh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't remember. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We've heard definitely a lot of stories about the Macy's parade and how like there's like a delay with the monitors and stuff there.
Yeah, the monitor delay.
Yeah, you have the monitor delay, and you have you just kind of have to wing it, and also like you don't have visual, like you can't see what you're looking at. Usually we have a monitor to work with, and we're always playing to camera, and with the parade you're playing to a live audience, so you kind of have to hope your head tilts right and you're looking at people. And the weird part is when you're in there, you're tucked in that set, you're usually sitting like this, puppeteering out through a window above you, and you don't know if you're passing grandstands that are the same height or if you're just passing people on the street. So you're kind of guessing. It's an interesting thing. The biggest thing is how long your arm's up for that. It is just grueling. It's a long time, and you have moments where you can take it down for a second, but you can't be down long. You got to be back up. So, especially if your character has lines on the recorded track, on the song track, because you don't want to miss them. So,
right.
But that's a lot of fun. That's such a different thing from the film side of it, but the energy is great. You come off of that feeling really good. So.
Oh yeah. And because there's like, thousands and thousands of, people
Yeah,
cheering
thousands of
on
people.
the Muppets.
Yep. Yeah, the sound, the live sound is amazing. The live reaction, that vocal sound, the cheering and everything. Even if it's raining and cold, it doesn't matter. You still hear
Right.
that, and it keeps you
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yep. And us on TV, we enjoy watching it every year.
Yes.
It's just as fun on TV as it is there in
Yeah.
New York City.
Well,
So
go ahead.
I know you go and finish.
I was just going to say that I think is one of the coolest things about, and it's also one of the things that really attracted me to puppetry on television, is that it's different from animation and it's different from live action film, because like when you see a cartoon on screen, you're watching that cartoon, and then you go to a theme park or whatever and you see a live walk around version, the character is a representation of the animated character. So that animated character may be 6 inches tall, 10 inches tall, and then you're next to a 6 foot tall version, furry version of it, in person. With puppets on television, that puppet that you see on screen is exactly the same as the one you see live. There's no difference, So I think there's like this strange reality there that is different, and then pulls it apart from animation and from other live action stuff. Because like if you see Kermit and you see someone hug Kermit on screen, and then you meet Kermit, it's the same Kermit. He didn't change. His size is the same. Everything's the same, and the reaction is really cool. You really relate to it. So.
Oh yeah. Going back to the Muppets for a second, you also got to work in a pair of specials. You mentioned Disney earlier. The pair of specials, Studio DC Almost Live.
Yeah.
What was it like working on those specials?
So that one was actually really fun, because my oldest son watched the shows that all the Disney kids were on. So he knew who all of them were. I didn't at the time, but I learned who most of them were after I'd met them. It was very cool in that respect. And what was neat with that was that we were incorporated as part of the show. Like we weren't the whole show. And it was really kind of like a multimedia extravaganza. It's like throw in the Muppets, throw in these Disney kids, throw in animation, and mix it all together. That one was a lot of fun to work on. We shot it very quickly because a lot of the kids that were on it were still working on their shows, so they were only available for part of one day. So the sketches were very quick, the bits and the segments. But it was interesting to see those kids, because like, a couple years later, some of them had gotten very big, become celebrities, and it was really interesting to watch the energy. That it was a lot of fun though. D20, I mean, that show in general was fun. So
yeah, definitely. And you also got to work with the Muppets on the 2011 film. Can you talk about your work on that movie?
Yeah, that one was a blast. I think that we just really had a good time on that. That actually started from Forgetting Sarah Marshall, from the vampire musical scene at the end. And when we were doing blocking for the vampire musical scenes for that, I was doing Van Helsing, the puppet character Van Helsing. So I was down on the floor with the other puppeteers doing the other main characters, and Jason Segel. And he is the biggest Muppet fan in the world. I mean, if you said the word Muppet, he just have this crazy grin on his face. He really, really loves the characters. And we were just sitting there in between takes and rehearsals, just chatting, and he was talking to everybody about how he just like loved the Muppets and wanted to, he and his friend had an idea for a Muppet movie and all that. It was kind of one of those things, is like, you're like, here he is talking about it, and then 3 months later, the media blurb comes out that they're doing the next Muppet movie. Was kind of crazy that it seems like it went from that. It was like almost like this idea, and hearing him talk about it, went from that to suddenly they were writing the next movie. And that was pretty amazing. That movie was incredible to work on too, because in the past, if we had big group scenes with a lot of Muppets in it, it meant bringing in every puppeteer in the world and doing all the characters in one pass. Like if you've seen that, there's a lot of famous photos of the Muppet movie, the rainbow, the scene in the soundstage at the end, and you see the big groups, like 100 puppeteers and all the puppets. So on this movie, there were a lot of big scenes like that, but they were shooting digital, and they were shooting with a digital camera, and they would shoot like a group of puppets, just a handful, and then they would put it on the screen, and then they would go in, and the same puppeteers would go get different puppets and to be a group, and then we could watch on the monitor. They would superimpose the groups, the first group, and then you would like line up and mesh into it, and they would shoot that, and they would blend that together, and then you would grab another group, and they were building it live. Like we were watching monitors where we could see 40 characters on, even though there were only 10 being done. And a lot of the group scenes were built that way, and that was pretty amazing. Technologically, that show was just, to be able to do that. I will say the coolest thing though was recreating the opening. You know,
yes,
that was such an amazing moment. I was doing Sam the Eagle for that, and
nice.
Actually we shot. I did a few characters. We shot rows, so it wasn't shot all at once. So we did rows, but the first one I did was Sam the Eagle, and it was you know, it was fast and furious, and you're running along this catwalk, you know, trying to get into place, and you don't realize how quick it is until you're there. You know, it's like, how far do I have to go? Where do I have to stop? And then I'm done, and then on to the next character. But there were, I will say, there were two extremely memorable moments in the shooting of that movie. One was that opening, and then the second was Kermit and playing Rainbow Connection at the end. And I don't think there was a dry eye in that entire place during that shot. I mean, everybody working on it, everybody there. It was just such a sentimental moment for everybody. It was an amazing experience to be part of. So I think I was doing Julius Strangefork or Link Hogthrob? I don't remember. We switched around a lot, but in that scene, that group scene at the end, for the big scene, I was on the stage camera right side, in the down up in the stage area. I will say one of the most fun bits we had was we built the city montage though.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So,
wonderful scene.
Yeah,
Yes.
I puppeteered Beauregard for a lot of that, and then
nice.
yeah, we swapped around again. We swapped around a lot of characters because there were a lot of characters going back and forth and floating in and out. So
yeah, and the cool thing about the 2011 movie was that was kind of like the first Muppet, like major Muppet project in a while, because they had done like commercials and like appearances on things, but that was like the first like really major Muppet thing in a while.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And it was the first one in a while where the Muppets played the Muppets and not other characters.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got to be themselves. So
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was
amazing film. It's amazing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like I said, one of the most fun moments was when we were coming out of the TV and swirling around Jason sitting on the chair.
Oh yeah.
The film where they all come to life, they all come through and become real. And that was a really fun scene because we're literally running around in circles with puppets over our heads around Jason, and he just had the biggest, goofiest grin on it. The face you see on the camera, that was his real look. He was just totally in Muppet heaven at that moment. So, and then, I think that started with Animal breaking out of the screen, which was very cool shot. So,
that's great.
And you're also a puppet builder for the Muppets Wizard of Oz. What was that like?
Yeah, so we that was great. I'm kind of I'm in a unique position because there aren't too many people that have worked for Muppets that have worked as a puppeteer and a builder, both. You're usually one or the other. And I don't know how that happened. It just kind of did. But it was great. I got brought in. I built. I worked with John Criswell and was it Patrick Garrity and 4 or 5 other people in the shop. Some of the original Muppet builders and then some new people as well. And my first job on that movie was to build rats. They needed more rats for Munchkins. So we built a dozen new rats that became part of the inventory. Yeah, 6 of them were radio control and 6 were live action, just regular hand puppets. And it's cool because they're in everything now. Like they became part of the Muppet Rat inventory. So it's kind of cool to see something I had a hand in. And then the other thing I built on that was the crow. There's a crow puppet that circles around. And that was a really fun puppet because I worked with Tom Newby on that. And we used a mech similar to Pepe's mech for his head. But instead of going up and down, it went this way. So that the crow could look this way, could rotate and look all around, which was kind of neat. And then they, Robin Dufay did the feathers on that. The feathers on that crow were amazing. I mean, just all hand done. It was beautiful. So
yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen that movie. I got to rewatch it again. It's been a really long time.
Yeah,
too. It's been a while.
Yeah,
they had the shop had a great time because you had to create the Muppet versions of the Wizard of Oz characters, but still be the Muppets. And like watching Susie work on Fozzie for forever, trying different wig looks and hair and everything else to make him look like the Cowardly Lion. And that was kind of cool being in there because you get to see all the different progressions. I think 3 or 4 different versions of Tin Man Gonzo, which was very neat. And then the final one came out. But it's such a unique thing to be on that side of it because you can have the prettiest looking puppet in the world, but if it doesn't work, it's just a doll, so you still need it to work with the puppet. And those characters had the advantage of being puppets first and then being made into the characters, so they worked really well and they looked amazing.
So what was it like into puppeteering on the Comedy Central series Crank Yankers?
Crank Yankers was a large part of my life. So I got brought in as the puppet coordinator when the show was being developed, and it was cool being on the ground floor. Basically, when I started, Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla had the idea, and then they got a green light, but they really didn't know how to start a puppet show. So Tony Colon and Greg Choa, the 2 producers on it, had brought me in, and basically what we did is we figured out what we needed to do. Having had a shop at that point for many years, but also being a puppeteer, I'm like, well, we need to figure out how to get these guys built. We need to get designs done. We need to get the builders to do them. We need to bring them in. We need to cast puppeteers. We need to get audio tracks done so the puppeteers can learn. It was a huge challenge, but it was amazing. We had such a unique group. And originally, the first season, we shot in New York. So we shot at Sony, which the whole puppet shop was literally a dressing room. It was like a 10 by 14 dressing room. That became the puppet shop. So the main puppets for the show were built by a company called Den Design. And Bob Flanagan's the owner of that. And Bob does a lot of stuff for Radio City Music Hall for their Christmas shows and their big shows. And a lot of his company does a lot of stuff for Saturday Night Live, a lot of the puppets and costumes and crazy gags. But they built the original puppets for Crank Yankers. And we started out with about, 8 main characters, and then 5 what we call blank characters, which are like anything Muppets. They're just a head shape, a body shape. And then our shop would make features that looked the way the people sounded in the calls. That show was really unique to the first season. We were only supposed to do 10 episodes. Then we ended up doing 22. And then we ended up doing a special Super Bowl one. So we ended up doing 23 episodes the first season. And we documented over 1,400 different characters we used that season. Wow. Yeah. Wow. We have Polaroids. We have like 8 binders this thick of Polaroids in one sheets because the writers at first were kind of not sure how to write for the bits. They would listen to these real phone calls and come up with ideas for the backgrounds. And at first it was like, okay, there's a guy walking through the background, or there's a lady vacuuming, or then it would turn into, there's an entire den of Cub Scouts and the Scoutmaster, and then a whole tribe of Indians comes running through, and it's so it went from 1 or 2 characters to a dozen characters, and on each call there were 2 sides, so we had that much action in each side of the call. So in a day we could shoot out 100 different characters in one day, and which meant the puppets would be used on a shot, then immediately as soon as they're done, sent to the costume shop, changed into something else, and then brought in for the next. Now, they may not have been in the exact following call, but the one after. So that first season, puppets were being used for 3 and 4 times a day as different characters every day. And it was really crazy. And we only had 3 people in the shop at the time. So it was very busy, very, very busy show. But they didn't think we'd get another season, but we did. And we moved to LA in the second season. And we continued to shoot in LA for 3 more seasons after that. So, but it was pretty great. We started small, and then by the second season, we had artists calling, asking to be on the show.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. Like Eminem and Snoop Dogg and all those guys wanted to be on. So it was fun.
Yeah. Actually, because that was the next thing I was going to ask, because there were a lot of celebrities on that show, like Eminem and Snoop Dogg. What was it like getting to work with them?
They're pretty amazing. Again, it's really crazy. Like, puppets have this weird effect on people, and they forget. Like, they stop putting on a show. Like a lot of celebrities, I think, have a persona that they are when they're in public. Then it may not be who they are in real life, but that's who we recognize them as. And I think puppets have this weird ability to turn that off, because people like see a puppet and all of a sudden they're themselves. They forget to be that character because the focus isn't on them anymore. And it's really cool. I think Crank Yankers had that effect. Jeff Goldblum was one of my favorites. Jeff Goldblum called and said, can I come in when you're shooting my calls? I'd really like to see this. And we were like, okay, well, let's check with production. Production was fine with it. So the day we shot Jeff Goldblum's calls, he came in early in the day, went and saw his puppet. He was just in love with his puppet. And our puppet shop out there did an amazing job on him. And we get in, and he's standing like a foot away from us. We're on set shooting, and he's like, would it be okay if I just sat, and watched you guys? And we're like, yeah, absolutely. Thinking he's going to sit like next to the director. He grabs an apple box and he sits in the middle of the set. Like, we're standing up puppeteering, and he puts an apple box right down the middle, and he's like this, watching us puppeteer. Now, we can't, like, this is Jeff Goldblum. I can't say, Mr. Goldblum, can you move? Because I need to go through there or walk around.
Yeah.
So you can't. So, but it was amazing. We shot, his calls with him sitting in the middle of the set with us, and he was fascinated. It was just that. I think that's one of my most favorite moments from that show is when that happened. Ron Binion was the other puppeteer with me on that scene, and I think we both just kind of came off and we were like, did that just happen? The funny thing is, he has a jazz combo. He plays in a jazz trio, and he goes, when are you guys having a rap party? And we're like, well, yeah, we had a Christmas party. They came and played at our Christmas party. He brought his jazz ensemble over, and they did
nice.
our live music.
Nice.
Just like, where in the world does this happen? So that was very cool. That show was great, though. That the outside stuff it led to like the MTV Movie Awards appearances, and the specials with Jim Florentine, and the Eminem music video. I mean, we got to do a lot of stuff outside with those characters, which was really cool.
So you also puppeteered on many commercials. Can you talk a bit about your commercial work?
Yeah, I think after the Muppet stuff slowed down, I started doing more commercial work. That one went on to be my bread and butter. I had my shop in Santa Clarita, and we're getting calls pretty regularly for commercial work. Kind of once you're in that world, you become the key part of it, which was amazing for me. And in 10 years' time, we did over 300 commercials with puppets. And most of them were fuzzy, cute, walk around puppets, not creaturey stuff. We did some creaturey stuff too. But everything from State Farm to AT&T, T-Mobile, what were the other? We did like 3 or 4 different cell phone commercials for companies. The Nike commercials. So the Nike commercials were amazing. We did those. I was working for Legacy Effects. They brought me in on that one. Legacy Effects too is another amazing company. when after 2008 and things slowed down, everyone was trying to expand their repertoire of what they would do, and Legacy started doing more hand puppet stuff. So they brought in a team of people to do the Nike commercials, and I wasn't on the first 3, but I was brought in when that got picked up for more, and that was an amazing experience. We did what 24, 27 spots over a year's time, and I built Little Des and puppeteered Little Des, who was the little kid next door, annoying kid next door character. He was an afterthought, and they're like, hey, you think you can do this? So I whipped him together, and he took off and ended up being in most of the campaign. So it was kind of cool. So
nice. And one of the newer projects you puppeteered on was Willy's Wonderland. Can you talk a bit about that?
Sure. Willy's Wonderland was an amazing experience. My very first film I ever did in 90 something was a movie. It was an indie film called Death Mask, and it starred James Best, who played a character called Roscoe P. Coltrane on the Dukes of Hazzard original series. And it was the first feature I ever did, and it was the only time I'd worked with an indie company, and I had a great time. And then Willy's Wonderland comes 30 some odd years later, and it was an indie film. It was a low budget indie, and I had been working on, since I'd moved to Georgia, I'd been working on the Spider-Man movies and a lot of the Dwayne Johnson movies and that, doing set dressing and prop work and stuff. And to go from that to all of a sudden being on this indie film was an incredible experience, because the big films will have 1,000 people on their crew. This indie film had 48 people or whatever it was. It was small, and everybody did everything. But on that film, Ken Hall's company built the costumes, and they brought them out from LA and shot there was one scene, the flashback video in that, where they see it back the way it was the only time the characters were shown the way they came from LA when they were new. And my original job was to help age the characters, to make them look worn and beat up. So that's what I did. I started basically destroying them, like decaying them, and created like fake metal and exposed bits and really dirty them up and kind of tweak things. So everything was just slightly off on them. And then I'd also been cast as Ozzy the Ostrich. So Ozzy was the only real puppet character. All the rest were mascots, like big fuzzy costumes. But Ozzy, I had the legs on my legs, and then his torso, his body was around my waist, but his head was puppeteered in front of me. So I had like a T control, like an airplane hangar control, and I had cables for the eye blinks in the mouth, little hand grips. And that was it. I was in a green suit, so they green screened me out from the shots. It was a lot of fun. Nicolas Cage was amazing to work with. He flew in and jumped right into it, and my character was the first fight and the first one to die. So I had the shortest role as far as the bad guys, which was a bummer. It would have been nice to have more days. But it was really amazing, like starting out in a fight scene, and then having your character just beat to death, literally by a broomstick. But it was a lot of fun. It was we had a great cast. The cast, the feeling of working on an indie film is so cool, because like we did scenes in the party room where there was blood everywhere. I mean, literally, there was so much blood on that movie. Tables were covered, and then they had to reset back to a clean one. Well, the producers, the writers, the entire office staff, everyone on the floor came in and helped clean tables off and reset. And you don't get that on a big film. It's like nobody does, people do their job and that's it. And the indie film feeling is like a family. It's very cool. And I think it's probably my favorite project I've ever worked on in my career, just because of that feeling of everyone was helping, there was no ego or anything. It was very cool. So I also learned that Nicolas Cage is a huge Godzilla nerd and comic book nerd, and he just total fanboy, which was awesome, because he just talked to everybody about all that stuff. So
that's great. That's great. And you also co-created and were a lead puppeteer on the series Video Game Theater. What kind of went into creating that?
So that started when I first moved to LA. I had met Frank Meyer and Scott Chernoff. Scott's a writer. He's been around a lot of the talk shows and stuff like that. And Frank Meyer is a producer, director, but he's most well known as a musician. He's been with a group called Street Walking Cheetahs that's been around forever. And they had this idea of doing like this retro 8-bit show with these characters, these vintage video game characters, but making their lives miserable, making them drug addicts, making them, they twisted the idea around. And they had met me. We'd been introduced and talked, and like, oh, this would be really fun to work on. But the concept was, we want to make this look homemade. Like, we don't want this to be super polished. We don't want these to look like someone spent 6 months building them or anything like that. So we're using foam balls and like fake fur pillows and just all kinds of stuff, and teddy bears, a little bit of everything to build the characters. And we shot it in my shop which was in Hollywood at the time, but it wasn't big enough to shoot in, but we managed to make it work. We shot in this, I don't know, probably like a 10 by 10 area for the whole thing, and just hung black drapes up or green screen and everything. And we originally had a deal with G4 Network. I don't know if you remember the video game network G4, but we were part of another show on there. And then G4, when I think that all went away, it got picked up overseas for international distribution, and they're still out there. You can still buy the DVDs, I think, online. But nice. It's just goofy, silly puppetry. We never wanted to hide the fact that they were just bad puppets. So,
right. So you also founded the company Bob's Your Uncle Productions. Could you kind of talk about how that was founded and the kind of work that you and everybody else does with that?
Yeah, it was actually part of the reason I moved to Georgia. Tom Stanley and myself have been lifelong friends. We actually met at the Muppet Workshop with Kevin and Steve Whitmire, and we also worked on Muppets from Space together. We were actually roommates on that. And we formed Bob's Your Uncle with the intent of creating content. Unfortunately, that company didn't go. We really didn't get much opportunity there. A lot of things happened at the time that we had created it with the economy, and people stopped working. There was a real lull when I first moved to Georgia for 2 years, where there was very little work and people weren't investing in new shows. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of things to say about Bob's Your Uncle. We tried and didn't work out. So I wish there were more to that story. But we do teach workshops, though. We've taught several puppet building workshops at the Center for Puppetry Arts. And Tom's gone on, actually, Tom Stanley has gone on to do some amazing traveling, like puppet shows, like really topical, deep, socially concerned shows. And he goes to festivals and stuff with it. So
nice.
He's more on the live show side.
So. Nice.
That's cool.
So since we're getting close to wrap things up very soon, so are there any words you'd like to say to us who have been supported and followed your career over the years?
Of supporting you guys,
are there any words you'd like to say to people who have followed your career and supported your career?
Thank you. Huge thank you. I guess I never really thought I had people that followed my career, so it's kind of an interesting question. I think thank you for making me aware of that. I really hadn't thought about it. I will say, and not a plug, but I'm just saying, one of the best things that ever happened in my career was the Stan Winston School for Character Arts. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but when I was a kid and getting into puppetry, like I told you earlier, I had one book at the library, and that was it. And the Stan Winston School is an opportunity for people who want to get in the effects industry or into puppets or into creature work or into painting and mold making, where you learn from experts, from pros working in the field. I would have died for that resource. That would have been amazing. And the internet has really changed things and allowed this kind of stuff to happen. And I think I would not have the following I have if it weren't for people that took those classes. It also made me discover something too. Like, I became a puppeteer because I was never really fully comfortable as myself on camera or on stage. I was very self-conscious, and puppeteering allows you to perform without being visible. That's that whole thing we're talking about. Because everyone's focused on the character, so you can put all that energy into that character, and you don't worry about you. And this Stan Winston School, my first video was live streamed all around the world. And it was the first time I ever felt comfortable as myself on camera, because there was no puppet to hide behind. And I found something that I really loved. Ended up doing 12 different videos for them. And the exposure was amazing, but just that feeling of being able to share the art. I'm so appreciative of everybody out there who wants to be involved in puppetry, because it is an art form. We're the only country in the world that doesn't treat it as an art form. We look at it as children's entertainment, but everywhere else in the world, it's an art form. People study. It's generational. You are a puppeteering family, and you're esteemed because of it. And I'm so happy to hear and to know that there are people out there that want to continue it. There's amazing builders. There's new technologies and new techniques. There's performers out there that are just amazing, doing incredible things, and they're shooting it on their phone and putting it online, which is amazing. It's like, keep doing that. So thank you to everyone keeping the art form alive. That's the biggest takeaway. So.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And for those that don't know who Stan Winston is, he directed the first Jurassic Park movies. Oh goodness, what else? The Inspector Gadget movie from like 25 years ago. Bunch of wonderful movies. That was Stan Winston.
Stan Winston, yeah. The Stan Winston was a pioneer in the special effects industry. So whenever you see those videos of the giant T-Rex robot, animation, that's what the Stan Winston Stan's shop built. I mean, they figured all that out. They spent years figuring out technologies for all that. And the Predator and Terminator, all those movies came out of Stan's shop. So he's truly, along with Rick Baker and the other guy, they're the real pioneers behind this. They've really made this practical effects what it is today. So
it's awesome.
Absolutely. If people would like to connect with you, where can people find you?
You can find me on my website. It's bjgeyer.com. I'm not the most technologically literate person in the world or accomplished, so it's a plug and play website. But I generally will put what I'm working on up there. Occasionally I'll do posts. You can also follow me on Facebook. I'm on Facebook as well. I started an artist site last year, but I really haven't added much to it. I have full intention now that I moved to start that up again as well. I try every once in a while to post, like if I'm building, I'll try to post little tips and tricks for people, for builders, things I've discovered either myself or learned from other people that really help people get a grasp on either beginning building or advanced, or just those little things that you would never think of. So every day as a puppet builder is a learning opportunity is what I look at. So
definitely a link to your website will be in the description down below for people to connect. So to end this off, the last question I'm going to ask is a question that we ask all of our guests at the end. So of course this podcast is called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. When you think of nostalgia, what do you think of, or in your own words, how would you define the word nostalgia?
Nostalgia to me are those memories that immediately take me back to that time, when I was a kid. And for me, it's literally sitting in front of the TV. We really don't have Saturday morning cartoons anymore, but back then it was Saturday morning cartoons. That was our day off of school, and planting myself 3 feet from the TV, watching Sesame Street or watching Fraggle Rock when it first came out was on HBO, and we didn't have it at home, so it was scrambled. And I remember sitting next to the TV watching it scrambled because I wanted to see the show. That's, to me, that's nostalgia. The McDonaldland character, seeing Grimace come back this last year. I mean, that brought back so much for me. It's those memories I still have as a child. And when I think about it, there's still a trigger that takes me back to that feeling. So
absolutely, great word to end on.
Yep.
Well, BJ, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This was fun. And also, DJ Bob says hello.
Oh, tell DJ Bob I
Yes.
said hi.
Of course.
He's wonderful.
He's so
great.
wonderful. He's the best.
Yes.
He is. He'd been talking about getting me back on again, and I just haven't been able to do anything time-wise. So I'm hoping to get a chance to chat with him again. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This was a blast.
Yes, and thank you very much. For what you're doing. To be what you're done to be a part. What your work has done to be a part of our lives. And keep up your great work. I can't wait what's next for you in store.
Thank you. Yeah, me neither. No.
Yeah.
Actually, we have big plans. We've got several shows we've been developing, and they're all puppet based. So
cool.
As soon as we get some distribution stuff set down, I'm really looking forward to having my own stuff out there.
Awesome.
Yes. Well, keep in touch, BJ. I'll let you know when this goes up.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yes. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
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 And it's goodbye from us as well.
Yes, we absolutely enjoyed speaking with BJ Geyer. As always, keep on the lookout for more wonderful interviews. And to end this off, what do we say, Jake?
Keep nostalgia alive. Okay, everyone. See you next time. See you for amazing, wonderful more episodes in your way. So take care, everyone. Take care. See ya. Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show interview. Be sure to follow Jake and the crew on social media and stream the show wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember to keep nostalgia alive. Bye-bye.